Hello, everyone, and welcome to Give Me Some Good News, the most positive podcast in the world.
Wow.
I know
Wow.
that's a bold statement, but I am your host, Caleb Sullivan, here as always with my amazing co-host, Mr. Tyler Ford. And Tyler, today is a bro show. So how are you doing today?
Hey man, I'm doing great. Living the sales bro life right now.
Yeah.
Having a good time. No, construction sales are they're doing well, and I'm enjoying watching this tourism industry from afar, Caleb.
I hear you, and I am enjoying being a part of this industry as always. And today is actually a special episode because if you are listening to this, I am on paternity leave. So I'm going to lead with the good news right now. My daughter will be born by the time this releases, Lilah Caroline Sullivan. She is my second child, so I know what I'm getting into theoretically, but I think like the way it works is you kind of forget how little sleep you get. Tyler, you tell me, as
Hmm.
a father of two girls, you forget and
Yes.
then you have the kid and then they remind you.
Here's the thing. You do forget, they remind you, and then you forget again, they remind you again.
Gotcha.
Because I know your personal life and I know how well JJ did.
Yep.
You had this, I don't know if you know, Caleb had an angel child and one JJ Sullivan, and he likes to sleep in and he likes to go to bed and he enjoys the sleep. So, as somebody who's had two girls who have not enjoyed sleeping, enjoyed screaming in the middle of the night, still,
Yep.
I'm excited to see how Caleb does. And I'm pulling for you, Lilah. You can be a screamer too.
Yeah. You
I'm
know what?
just
Let me
kidding. I
know in the
don't
comments
wish that.
who thinks that Lila is going to be an angel child like JJ, or who thinks I am currently in a sleepless nightmare. Let us know in the comments.
Yes.
But today's episode is special because this is actually our 21st episode that we've recorded. And I wanted to kind of talk through some lessons that we've learned along the way. As anyone who's listened to this podcast for any amount of time knows, this is something that we're just kind of building together as we go. It's fun and it's low pressure. And I just wanted to kind of share some lessons I've learned along the way and get Tyler's thoughts too. But kind of lesson number one, and this is something I know as a fact, but something that I'm being reminded of on this podcast is that this industry is both smaller and kinder than we think. It is a small world in tourism. We are a large portion of the country's GDP, travel and tourism is. However, it is a small world. And when you get the opportunity to really let people shine a light on the great work that they're doing and the good news from their different destinations, you know, it really just kind of makes us feel even smaller. Like we're all just here pulling up a chair on the front porch as we do here in North Carolina and chatting. And I just love it. I love this industry. I love the people I get to talk with. And it has been an absolute joy. So, the industry as a whole is smaller. And, everyone who I know in this industry talks about how great it is and how great the people are. But this podcast is just a weekly reminder of how wonderful and special the people are in this industry. So yeah, Tyler, I don't know what your thoughts are being an outsider looking in, but
Hmm.
what do you think?
Well, yeah, first I couldn't agree more with that. The fact that you guys are really small. Like as an industry, tourism is really small. And so, a little context for me, I make about 170, 200 calls a day in cold calling. And I was just thinking about like what it would be like to call on all of tourism. And wow, it would only take a month, if
Yeah.
that. And that's just crazy to me. And yet you guys are you're small, but you're also so connected. Um, like everyone, just the conferences, it's like its own bubble, like one of those liberal arts colleges where like nobody has a car,
Yeah.
and everyone is like kind of has their own lingo and stuff. Shout out to Elon. Elon was like that.
Yep.
Well, I had car, but still, everyone had like their own lingo, and no one really left. And like, it's
It's
as
a
if
sense of
you're,
community. Yeah.
yeah, real community, and that's pretty rare in an industry. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I've really come across any other industry that has a community sense like tourism. And just throughout talking with so many people on this podcast and just learning from them, I've really learned that, like, yeah, we really are all connected. And even me being an outsider, I don't feel like an outsider.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm actually part of tourism through this podcast and just through friendships and connections now. Like I'm in the little bubble now,
Yeah.
even though like I'm not being paid by a company or by a DMO in the bubble, but like I'm in the bubble. And
Yeah.
that's kind of cool.
And
And
that's
that's
great.
something just yeah.
What you bring up is the spirit of hospitality that this community truly invokes. And I think it's important for us as destination leaders to really never lose sight of that. I mean, welcoming, we welcome people into our communities as destination marketers, but we also welcome people into our community as DMO professionals. And I think, the more people we can bring to the table, the more people we can make feel welcome, the better, right? Whether it's your stakeholders, whether it's people from outside, whether it's, folks in the community. I think that's important. Um, Another thing I've kind of learned along the way, especially over probably like the past 5 episodes, is that leaders really win with vulnerability, not just vision, right? We've
Hmm.
talked some of my favorite moments on this podcast. We're not talking about KPIs or campaign results. It was talking about things like cancer survival, talking with Mason. It was things talking about like career pivots and growth, like talking with Emily about becoming the chief innovation officer for Visit Corpus Christi. It was breaking down barriers and talking about things like imposter syndrome and how we position ourselves as professionals in this industry. Um, you know, the strongest leaders I've seen so far are the ones with the most honesty. People who are leading by example, people who are leading with their hearts and their minds and taking into account, their teams when they make decisions, like we were talking with Jeremiah about just a few weeks ago. So, um, I think that's what's really important is never truly losing sight of that. And I know there are a lot of other people out there that I would love to talk to and have on this podcast, and we likely will. But that is just a common theme that I've kind of seen throughout these, 20 episodes we've done.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just really important for those who one are leaders and looking to just sharpen their craft in leadership, but also those who really aspire to be leaders. I mean, that- and want to continue growing in leadership, like you and I, and just anyone listening, really. I think it's great to have that vulnerability and also learn how to just have really authentic conversations with the people around you. Uh,
Yeah.
just unscripted, just pure authenticity. And that's definitely been a theme, I'd say, of these 20 episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I think is a testimony to the people that we have in our industry.
Yeah.
Authenticity. I always say, content is king, or content is queen, content is queen, distribution is
Okay.
king, and authenticity sells. And that's in regards to actual, DMO marketing material and strategic, where are you putting your ad dollars, and telling that story authentically. But I think that's also real in leadership too. Like if you are authentic, people kind of grasp that, and part of the
Hmm.
point of this podcast was who is Caleb Sullivan as a professional, who's Tyler Ford as a professional, and how can we tell those stories and shed light on the good news and the good people in our industry. And so getting to see that firsthand has just been an absolute blast for me. Um, and kind of leading onto that tone a little bit, um, I see, another lesson I've learned is like positivity is strategic, not naive, right? There's a lot going
Yeah.
on in our industry. There's a lot going on in travel and tourism, budget considerations. The world is always changing, political situations that we have some or no control over. But this podcast isn't about ignoring problems in the travel and tourism industry. It's about finding the bright side of the solution. And so, you know, I like reframing these conversations, and focusing on opportunity over fear. And I like focusing on innovation over stagnation. And then my personal favorite is relationships over transactions. And I think we as an industry, we've got so much to offer the world, and we've got so much to offer our destinations and the communities that we serve. For me, focusing on the optimistic side of that when paired with execution becomes the competitive advantage. So our goal is to really unpack that for these destinations and to make sure that, there are other podcasts in our space, and I love them. I listen to them. I'm gonna be on one of them and actually talk about some truly hot takes that I don't find as optimistic
Ooh.
for this podcast. So TBD, I'll let you guys know soon. But that being said, this is a space for us to lead with optimism and to focus on the bright side of this wonderful industry that we all love.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that. I think that this optimism and this industry kind of connect with us and authenticity.
Hmm.
Like I feel like the people of this industry are in general super optimistic that like for them to be truly authentic, you've got to like believe in what you're doing. You've got to believe in tourism. You have to believe in it making past certain, I don't know, uncontrollable factors, or even I'm trying to think of how to put this, like certain issues and problems that are coming up in tourism, hindering growth. Let's say AI and kind of being behind in certain areas. Like I think in order to really be authentic here in this industry, you've got to be optimistic about the ability for people's love of travel, people's love of destinations to conquer over some of these barriers. So I agree with that, and I kind of wanted to keep it at authenticity too for one more point here. I think the world has been kind of shifting as we've been doing this podcast, like the AI world. I don't know if you've noticed this, the EM dash, like the
Yeah.
dash
Oh
has
yeah.
gone from like, wow, this is really professional to wow, this is really inauthentic.
Yeah.
And I feel like that shift has kind of gone along as we've been doing this podcast. And I just kind of wanted to bring that up. I think that's something I've learned from the people we've been having on is how they kind of stay true to their non-AI selves,
Yeah.
and they're keeping it authentic. So I think that's really important, though. Just
Yeah.
a lesson for all of us here in
Yeah,
tourism or even out of
absolutely.
tourism.
No, and I totally agree. I mean, part of the reason, and some folks have listened, like the reason I started my Substack was to have actually part of the reason I started this podcast and my Substack was to have a creative outlet in which to show my authentic professional self to the world. And I think that there is a good opportunity for destination marketing professionals to do that. Whether it is through, being on panels, being on stage, being on this podcast, or even starting your own content stream. I think it's really important to, show the good work that you're doing. And I think that goes a lot further than just advocacy. I think that also kind of speaks to your personal brand, and to who you are as a professional and sharing that story. If you don't share, I posted about this on LinkedIn a few days ago, but if you're not sharing, if you're not telling your brand story, your personal brand story, then someone else is telling that for you. And so, be authentic, have those outlets. Yeah, that's all great. Um, one of the things I've learned as a podcast host, is that great questions matter more than great answers. Um,
Oh yeah,
I am working, and you guys have probably heard the progression for anyone who's a longtime listener. Um, I, Tyler and I are learning how to ask questions. Like we're literally, I've been working with I'm not going to say who, but a soon to be podcast guest here. Um, and I've been working on sharpening the skill. I've been really trying to learn how to ask questions correctly. Um, Tyler and I have kind of shifted, like, do we want it to be totally candid? Do we want to pre-prep questions? But we are kind of working at the cadence of the guests that we have and what makes them comfortable. Some folks love shooting from the hip, like myself. Other folks like having pre-prep questions, and that's okay. At the end of the day, I'm learning that great questions bring the most out of each guest, and no matter how those questions are developed, it's wild to me how the conversation can shift based on the
oh yeah,
person and what they're into and what they want to talk about.
yeah. And honestly, half the time that we have these pre-prepped questions when we do, like I don't even go with them because
Yeah,
I'll be like doing so focused on more of an active listening, like oh, like hearing this guy or this girl out, and all right, hold on, I've got more questions literally about what you're saying right now, and
right.
like we end up going with those, and I know you do that too, and I think that Yeah, for me, I agree. This definitely learning how to ask questions in, like in sales, it's like, 80% should be the client speaking, 20% should be the seller, kind of in a similar way of just, being more of a listener and really hearing these people out because they've got cool stories to tell, and that's why they're on here.
Yeah, curiosity is key. And I think if you're
Mhm.
not genuinely curious, then it makes these conversations difficult. Fortunately for Tyler and I, we are both nerds and we are genuinely
Yeah,
curious to learn as much as
true
we
that.
can from everyone on this podcast. And so that's been great. And kind of the last point that I found as a podcast host, and Barbara, we had Barbara, the owner of Paradise Advertising, on, and she told Tyler and I, like, you guys are entrepreneurs, right? Like, we, you know just kind of like look at ourselves as entrepreneurs. Now, I will like lead that by saying we don't take any kind of sponsorship dollars. The guests we have on, we only have on because we're interested in having them on. And that's how we plan to keep this, just to have a fun, safe space for folks to chat. Um, and because of that, I've kind of found like we're trying to treat this more like a business from the aspect of like how do we get this message out to as many folks as possible to the right audience. And one of the things I found is, consistency builds credibility. As we're recording this, we've had about 150 listens to this podcast. So I just want to say thank you to everyone in the industry. And we have like 24 followers, which like for us, I mean, guys, honestly, like
Ooh,
didn't
all
even,
right.
I didn't even know if anyone would be interested in this. So we just want to say thank you. But we really enjoy the consistency of being able to post this podcast every week. We take time out of our day. I use my lunch break. Tyler uses his lunch break. But we've just found like the more we're able to share this, the more you guys are receptive to it. And we're not. I don't claim to be the smartest DMO professional or DMO service professional on the planet. I'm learning just as much as y'all are as we go along. Tyler's not even in the industry.
I'm
And
not
this
even a DMO
is
professional.
not even a DMO professional. We're literally here just to learn alongside you guys to highlight the wonderful work that y'all are doing. And we're hoping that this consistency can continue to compound and just share this message in the industry. Um, you know, we're we're having a good time. You know, we're sharing good news, and we hope that this podcast evolves into, again, just being a safe, positive space for y'all to share the good work that you're doing in our industry. And so with that, I'll kick it over to Tyler to share a little more color on that.
Hey, man, I'm all about some good news. And I want to shift this now because
Shift it.
we're going to shift this to some good news. Caleb, we made some New Year's resolutions,
We did.
right?
We
And I'm
did.
all about not breaking the resolution like in January when they get broken.
Yeah.
Here we are. This is probably going to be posted in March,
Yep.
February 4th, but same thing. How are we doing on the resolutions? I'll start by sharing my good news is I've been keeping out my books, right? I've been
Yes,
reading
sir.
about 7 books, 8 books so far this
Yeah.
month, or not this month, but this year. I do actually have to step it up. I've had a couple of those big ones though. So
Yep.
that said, loving the reading journey. Got a Substack that
Yep.
we'll be posting my book reviews on, kind of deciding if I want to do only professional nonfiction helpful books or if I want to like sprinkle in Project Hail Mary,
Yeah.
my favorite science fiction stuff. But that's another topic. That is some good news in my world though, Caleb. We're sticking to these New Year's
Yeah.
resolutions.
Yeah. No,
How
same.
about
I
you give me
mean,
some good news, man?
for me, we can piggyback off of that. We talked about this with David toward the back half of last year, who just got a job with Miles Partnership. So shout out to my guy David.
Shout out, David.
We're
Way to
really
go.
proud of you. You are just, God, what a great guy and what a great friend to me in this
Yep.
industry. But we were talking about like resolutions, professional development and growth. And I mean, for people who can see behind me, this shelf used to have no
Oh, there,
books
there.
on it. And now we're stacked. I've been reading um, consistently. It's been great. I feel like I have a new gear almost in my head. I'm able to focus more and just be a better professional. Um, I've made some health shifts in my life. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, this time of year is a weird one, right? Like a lot of people, are either like loving their lives or they're kind of, being hard on themselves about their resolutions. It's never too late to start again. It's never too late to pick the baton back up. But fortunately for me, it's just been a good year, man. Like we've got that daughter on the way. Shout out to Lilah, my little girl,
Hey,
and
shout out Lilah.
shout out to Lilah. And I, shout out to all of you guys that listen to this podcast. We we just love doing this. We're literally doing this because it's fun. And Tyler, I would say that this has been some good news.